To say I enjoyed last night's episode of Raw would be an understatement. The March 25th episode of WWE RAW was something special. It surprised me in ways I didn't think wrestling could anymore. Definitely one of the best episodes of the show I've seen in a long time. And I'm not the only one who feels that way. Some people are even suggesting this is indication that we're heading back to the Attitude Era or that we're already in a new Attitude Era. Is that true? Well, to answer that question, let's take a look at the episode. Welcome to Silo Voice Wrestling on YouTube, the Silo Voice Wrestling podcast. From Silo Voice Studios in Montreal, I'm Jason C. McLean. If you're new here, please like, share, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and those notifications will tell you that I have another opinion piece or a prediction video about wrestling coming out. Usually it's not going to be a specific show review. I do those in written form at svsreviews.com/wrestling. And that's exactly what I was going to do for this episode of Raw until I watched it. And it clicked in my head that there was something I was planning on doing, a video on what era we're in exactly. And I realized this is the perfect episode to try and answer that question with. Now, it was in the All-State Arena in Chicago, Illinois. The big news was that CM Punk was returning. I was wondering what Punk was going to say. I was thinking maybe Drew McIntyre was going to come out, the cult of personality, all that good stuff. I had my theories going in. And we started with the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes heading to the ring. When Cody entered, first thing I noticed was that the Titantron was smaller to accommodate more people, apparently 15,000 plus. Their 11th consecutive TV sellout. This gave it a real big match feel, like a PLE feel, usually only reserved for the SmackDown before a PLE or the Raw after Mania. It was nice to see it on a sort of, I guess you could say, random Raw 2 weeks before Mania, as the company's really hot. The crowd was really hot. Obviously, they were waiting for CM Punk, but Cody was a nice way to start. I figured, yeah, okay, they're getting Cody out of the way first. Bring back that story he talked about Roman Reigns. Specifically addressed how Roman said he was always Mr. Nice Guy, mentioned the bachelor party he promised to attend for some random fan, the kid's birthday party he was going to go to. He said the only reason why you think I'm a politician, why I dress like the champion, is because the champion's never here. Of course, he was referring to Roman, not Seth Rollins, his tag team partner. He put over Pat McAfee and Michael Cole. He got a little bit blue. He mentioned that he had stopped Roman and Rock's quote unquote wank fest. So it was kind of a mix between the earnest babyface Cody and the not going to take it anymore, not heel, but aggressive babyface Cody. I didn't know what he was going to say, but what he said was at this point was kind of what I expected the direction he would go in would be. He also did an interesting thing. He pointed at the WrestleMania sign and got the whole crowd to point at the WrestleMania sign with him. At this point, I thought, okay, this is nice. This is good. You're supposed to build at this point. There wasn't going to be any kind of run-ins, or if they were, it wasn't really going to lead to any kind of major angle. But then, if you smell what the final boss is cooking, The Rock interrupting is nothing new. The Rock is, after all, part of this storyline. The Rock showing up unannounced hasn't happened since before he was actively part of the WrestleMania storyline. But still, they're changing it up a bit, but not too much. But The Rock not saying anything. Staring down Cody, whispering something, and then leaving. Now, that's something I don't even remember them doing in the Attitude Era. That's something new. And that stare down was intense. Just the two of them staring at each other, and the crowd was filling in the gaps in the audio. They started chanting "Holy shit!" At one point, they started chanting "CM Punk" because it looked like nobody was going to talk. The Rock didn't even have a microphone. This is awesome because it was, and they were just two guys staring at each other in the ring. They didn't expect to see The Rock, and they definitely didn't expect him not to cut a promo, even a heel promo. And then The Rock just left, and the crowd booed. Well, they booed because he was leaving, and that's one of the biggest heel moves he has done to date since coming back. That's more of a heel move than calling the audience crackheads. Of course, that wasn't the biggest heel move he would do this night, but we're not there yet. So, wow, I'm intrigued. It left me and everyone else with way more questions than answers. What did The Rock whisper to Cody? After a bit in the Judgment Day clubhouse, we got Ricochet versus JD McDonough. The backstage segment was good at reinforcing the interplay between the Judgment Day members, and the match was a good match. It was a fun match, exciting. Not that long. Ricochet pulled some amazing moves. He did a Canadian Destroyer, which Michael Cole didn't seem to recognize. Said, what was that? The story of the match was basically Dominic Mysterio cheated, then tried to interfere again, got ejected, and Ricochet won. And of course, JD is probably going to be in trouble with the Judgment Day. And I'm glad they're pushing Ricochet, even though he's not on the WrestleMania card. Maybe he'll be in the Battle Royal, but it's good to showcase him when you can in front of such a large crowd, because Ricochet definitely can deliver. In the Attitude Era, matches like this might just end in a schmoz or would have been even shorter. But again, we're not in the Attitude Era. I don't think we're going back to it. I think we're going somewhere else, but that's the theme of the show. This was a good current match, solid match, nice ending. Glad we got it. At the top of the 9 o'clock hour, the Second City Saint himself, Chicago's own CM Punk, hit the ring. Punk came out to a massive crowd reaction. He was the one everyone was there to see after all. He was off the cuff like usual. He said, my mouth still works. Just asked my wife, and then made a reference that they're not on Netflix yet. He went a bit behind the curtain. He talked about 2 Jim Cornette podcasts, offhandedly mentioning them when talking about Roman Reigns to Pat McAfee. Of course, yes, he talked about Roman Reigns. He talked about The Rock. He brought up that promo that he cut on The Rock 10 years ago, basically implying The Rock doesn't want another sort of verbal tongue lashing from him. He was fun. The crowd was into it. He put over Chicago. Yeah, it sounded a bit Attitude Era-esque, but of course, it also sounded a lot more like current CM Punk, which is edgy. He invited Drew McIntyre to come out rather than wait for McIntyre to interrupt him. McIntyre came out. Punk right away ordered the sound guy to turn off McIntyre's music, which the sound guy obliged. McIntyre refused to get into the ring. And then he sat on, and then basically for the rest of the promo, or almost the rest of the promo, plunked himself down at the announce table. And that's where things really went off the rails. Now, how much of this was pre-planned? I don't know, but the whole thing felt unscripted. It felt like they were grasping at straws at one point. I'm pretty sure when Punk went after Drew, said, who named you the chosen one? Knowing full well it was Vince McMahon, and knowing full well Drew couldn't say that name on TV, I doubt that was planned. Well, maybe Punk probably planned to say it. Maybe he didn't tell Drew, and Drew's reaction was very natural. He started talking about commentary, Punk doing commentary. That part was obviously planned because it set up Seth Rollins' entrance. We hear burn it down, and here's the World Heavyweight Champion. Rollins did his best to bring things back to the script, or at least the storyline. He succeeded at first, but ultimately he failed when the crowd didn't seem too excited about Punk being the guest commentator and started chanting referee, referee. And he said, oh, that's his bad arm. And then Punk counts 1, 2, 3 to show him up. But eventually Punk did agree to be the special guest commentator, and he left. His music hit, and then Drew started getting really angry and jealous and started saying, you're not going to have the last word. You're obsessed with me. You previously called him his muse, the whole thing. And then Seth just super kicks him, knocks out Drew, which was very nice because for all these weeks, Drew's been saying how Seth has been taking his eyes off the prize, the World Heavyweight Championship that he's defending, and instead focusing on helping Cody fight The Rock and Roman Reigns. Whereas in this case, it was actually Drew who was obsessed with CM Punk, took his eyes off the prize that he was going for, and took his eyes off his actual WrestleMania opponent, the World Heavyweight Champion. So it was very poetic almost, and it did bring things back to normal. Now, I'd like to think that whole middle segment was completely improvised. It probably wasn't, but it definitely felt that way. And that felt very Attitude Era. Candace LeRae versus Ivy Nile did not feel very Attitude Era, if only because in the Attitude Era, women didn't have serious storylines like this, at least not most of them. This was definitely modern era stuff. This is current stuff. This is a very quick heel turn for Candice LeRae, continuing heel turn. And she's already turned. Now she's just reinforcing her heel status. And it's the very slow realization from her partner, Indy Hartwell. The match was mainly just to reinforce that storyline. LeRae pretended she was injured, distracted the ref, thought that Indy would, do the right thing or do the wrong thing and attack Ivy outside of the ring. But eventually she didn't. Ivy comes back. LeRae powers up, uses the feet on the ropes to get the win. Indy's disgusted. I think maybe there's going to be a fight between Candace and Indy. I love what they're doing with Candace LeRae. I love that they're actually making her interesting, and I think the heel turn is perfect. And this is obviously not going to really play into WrestleMania, but this is a good further development of an ongoing Raw storyline. And then we got a no contest decision, a beatdown, and various comedy elements. Those elements all put together do in fact scream Attitude Era, but separately, they're all part of WWE's DNA. And this definitely was a storyline that had been progressing and is progressing to WrestleMania. I'm talking, of course, of the New Day versus DIY with Awesome Truth, that's The Miz and R-Truth, on commentary with Michael Cole and Pat McAfee, or JBL, as R-Truth comedically likes to think. Now, the match was decent while it lasted, but of course, it ended up with a attack and beatdown from the Judgment Day, taking out two of the Damian Priest and Finn Balor's opponents, well, actually three of their opponents, or hurting them before the six-pack tag team ladder match at WrestleMania. It was also really funny how R-Truth didn't seem to realize he was supposed to help out because he was on commentary. He even called for the commercial break. It was fun. It was hilarious. It was good setup. It's definitely a mix of the old style with the current storylines and the new style. It wasn't really a banger of a match. There were some good matches on this show, but there weren't really any bangers. But of course, that makes sense on the road to WrestleMania. You don't want to risk your top talent getting injured or working too hard before their main event at WrestleMania. Now, one match that could have been a banger was Andrade versus Ivar. Of course, that didn't happen. Instead, we got Andrade versus Giovanni Vinci. It was a short match, decent match. Vinci did look strong at the start, but of course, it was really a showcase for Andrade. It might have been more of a banger, as I said, or more of a contest if it had been Ivar, but of course, he's not cleared to compete. I hope Ivar gets well soon. I don't know if he got injured or something. This brings us to the 10 o'clock hour, where we got some major WrestleMania build. We all know Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch is going to be an incredible match. Like, we all knew that Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte Flair was going to be an incredible match. Unfortunately, last year, it was an incredible match with a really sort of phoned in build. It sort of only developed too late. It didn't really get that personal, except for their personal histories in the ring. This time, they're doing it right. At the 10 o'clock hour, we got Rhea Ripley with Dominic Mysterio in the ring, I guess to reinforce the fact that she's the heel in this match. Becky Lynch comes out, and Rhea gets really personal. He brings up her daughter, says that she's going to call me mommy. Becky really responds, gets angry at that, gets very negative and gets very emotional. And it was exactly what was needed. There was a bit of physicality at the end. It was great to see Becky just take out Dom twice. They're trying to get at each other, but they're being pulled apart. It was heat that was warranted, that was developed, and that was built. And this was the perfect way to do it. I'm glad they're doing it. And no, 2 weeks before WrestleMania is not too late to do it if they do it this way. This is really good stuff. And I'm even more excited for this match that would probably be a main event were it any other year and not a year involving The Rock. But yeah, great segment at the top of the 10 o'clock hour. And speaking of WrestleMania build, we got Big Bronson Reed versus Sami Zayn, otherwise known as Sami Zayn versus Gunther's Mind Games, because that's what this match was about. Sami Zayn lost, which is not something that number one contenders for major titles usually do 2 weeks before WrestleMania, especially to somebody who's basically a mid-carder, a strong mid-carder, but a mid-carder. But of course, the story here was the fact that Gunther had told Sami beforehand that he didn't even think he could beat Bronson Reed. And of course, Gunther comes out and distracts Sami, and Sami's a little too late to deliver the Huluva kick, and eventually ends up getting taken out and gets hit with the tsunami. It's not that this was the best match in the world. There was psychology in the match, but most of that psychology involved Gunther outside of the ring. And the real story being developed here is one that involves Chad Gable. When I heard that they were going to try and bring Sylvester Stallone in for WrestleMania in Philadelphia and do some sort of Rocky vignette with running up the stairs to the library like in the movie, I assumed it had to do with Cody Rhodes. But now I'm almost convinced that what they're thinking is Sami Zayn being coached by Coach Chad Gable. Gable is going to be the one that helps him beat Gunther. Now, if he does beat Gunther, maybe Gable then gets jealous, turns heel, and challenges Sammy for the Intercontinental title. I wouldn't mind seeing matches like that. Or maybe if Sammy doesn't win, Gable goes after Gunther. But I love what they're doing here. At first, I was really happy Sammy won, but a lot of people were saying Gable should have been in this spot. Gable is going to be part of WrestleMania, but I'm pretty sure he's going to be in Sammy's corner at WrestleMania. This is solid storyline and character development. Considering they only added Sammy to this story a few weeks ago, I say job well done. I'm already now way more invested in this match than I was before, and I was already very invested because I'm a Montrealer. I'm a huge Sami Zayn fan. And then in our main event, Jay Uso defeated Shinsuke Nakamura. Jay speared Shinsuke, 1, 2, 3, end of the match. Good night. That's all that happened. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. I'm kidding, of course. Yes, that match was to set up for something else, much bigger and unexpected. During the match, Solo Sikoa, Jimmy Uso came down to the rescue. It was Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes. Cody ends up fighting to the back. Seth takes a Claymore from Drew McIntyre, and then Jay gets the victory. And we cut to the back. Cody's fighting Jimmy and then Solo. And who should appear and go hardcore on Cody but The Rock? The end of this show was incredible. After hitting him with a few objects, Rock opened the door, shoved Cody out to right next to his tour bus, started beating him, trash talking him. Cody couldn't fight back. It was raining in Chicago. The rain added to the quality of this segment in ways that maybe they couldn't predict, but it definitely helped. It was just the two of them, the cameraman. Nobody came to help. By the way, I hope somebody shows an arena shot of Drew taking out Jey Uso, because he was still standing last time we saw him and he didn't come to help out. Maybe the door was blocked. One loose end. I hope they tie that up real quickly. But yeah, that shouldn't detract from this segment. Rock was trash talking. He was saying, like, he swore, dropped an F-bomb. He was brutal. This is heel Rock, but not just insulting the crowd and being a bit of a dick heel Rock. This is real, vicious, angry, cutthroat heel Rock. This is a side of the Rock I don't think I've ever seen. And honestly, I think Dwayne Johnson should maybe play a villain in his next movie, because this was really good. Excellent performance. Cody was taking the beating like a total pro. And then Cody gets color. Yeah. He bladed. He got blood. Intentional. This wasn't a hard way. This wasn't accidental. This was definitely planned. He got blood. That's something that's been banned from WWE TV unless it's accidental for decades. It's, of course, a hallmark of the Attitude Era and other wrestling companies like AEW, but to do it in WWE is something. Now, I'm glad they're not doing it all the time, because that takes away from the specialness of it. It shows the particular brutality, the particular importance of this conflict. Of course, Cody has to fight Roman. We'll talk about that later. Roman was kind of left out of this. It still reinforces the whole, this is Cody versus Rock, but like, wow, it was completely unexpected. Rock also addresses the fact that people were complaining about him not talking to the crowd earlier. And he's saying, I'm talking now. And this is not crowd-pleasing Rock. This is not, babyface Rock just playing a heel because that's what the situation demands. This is villain heel Rock. And Cody is the victim, the innocent babyface. He takes out he has a weight belt with Mama Rhodes, Rock does, written on it, and he rubs Cody's face in it just like he promised on social media. He brings him Cody's mother. It was a stunning and incredibly memorable and excellent end to a surprisingly excellent episode of Raw. By the way, did you notice the WWE production truck that somehow found its way into the shot and was well lit intentionally for the shot? Well, most of the production trucks on the road these days have the WrestleMania logo and the current stars, and this one, for some reason, had John Cena and Stone Cold Steve Austin on it, two of Rock's biggest opponents. Cena rumored to be part of WrestleMania, and Austin, who knows, 40th anniversary. Is this implying something? I think so. Whether we'll see it or not, who knows? But definitely everything WWE does production-wise these days is deliberate, and so was this. So I forgot to mention when Drew and Punk were out there, at one point, Drew said to Punk, "We're PG, brother." Well, no, we're not, or at least we won't be for much longer. Does that mean, though, that we're going into the Attitude Era or that we're already there? No. Yes, we are taking some of the best elements of the Attitude Era, the unpredictability, the off the cuff nature, the violence, the stars, the rock, the packed houses, the must watch TV. All that's coming in. But some of the worst elements aren't. Instead, we're getting consistent storytelling. We're getting good character development. We're getting big moments treated right. We're getting even smaller moments given the importance they deserve or the levity that they deserve. We're getting really compelling TV. We're getting an amazing picture, a combination of the best elements of the Attitude Era and the best elements of the new era, and some elements that we haven't even had before in WWE. So what do we call this era? Well, Nick Aldis tweeted something, and I believe Triple H has been calling this backstage the Renaissance era. Makes sense, doesn't it? You don't go back to the Middle Ages. You take the best elements from the Middle Ages and you make them better with new stuff in a renaissance. And we definitely are in a professional wrestling renaissance. The one aspect that's currently missing on this Raw are the banger matches, which we've had a lot of recently, but don't worry, those will be added into the mix at WrestleMania and after WrestleMania. We just can't right now. This, though, in Chicago, this cinematic, beautiful piece of professional wrestling television, I'd have to say, was the first Raw of the Renaissance era. Follow at Silo Wrestling on X, at SBS Reviews on Instagram and Facebook, and at Jason C. McLean on X and Instagram.